Good evening and welcome to The Uncomfortable Truth, the football show that loves to challenge popular football narratives. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Today, we will be discussing football heritage versus the new kids on the block, the oil slickers. Something that I felt was a decent conversation from last week, which was whether money is killing football. It actually continued into another debate
Mm.
where it came to discussing basically, the traditional statesman clubs, your Manchester Uniteds, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, and how you know, they're proper clubs. They've done it properly. And then I'm seeing these challenges about the new clubs who have had that, shall we say, that oil investment.
Mm.
So you've had Chelsea under Abramovich, you had City with Sheikh Mansour, and now you've recently got Newcastle United with the Saudis. Now, one thing I thought was very, very interesting, something that's come out from the Twitter Spaces, is that Liverpool fans seem to have this really weird sense of entitlement that their achievements this season is so much better than Man City, and it seems to be a case of actually it's always about money. It's always about money. It always goes back down to money, and that they haven't spent anything with regards to that. And the question for me is to really make it the uncomfortable truth for certain fans is this just bitter? Are we just being bitter here? Is this sour grapes when it comes to actually what Chelsea and Man City and potentially in the future what Newcastle United and teams like that are achieving? If you want to extend it into Europe, we can discuss PSG. But for me, I think that conversation needs to be had there because I don't think it's as straightforward as what people like to make out. I think there's a lot of clubs, a lot of fans of teams that like to cry poor when actually they've spent a heck of a lot of money. I think there's fan bases here that talk about tradition and we've done it the proper way, but actually when you look at the finances behind it, I don't get it. It doesn't marry up. There seems to be inconsistencies and the arguments always seem to change. But make sure you hit that like and you share this because I think this is a really good debate amongst football fans as a whole, and subscribe. A big shout out to our sponsors, Check It and Cop It. Make sure you check those guys out. As you can see, you got myself in today, and you have Sam, Doctor Who.
Hi.
Sam, how are you today, my man?
I'm good. Like I'm quite excited for this topic because I feel like there's a lot of false narratives that have been painted by both sides of it, and like there's a lot of things that have been said that just aren't like. You've got firstly with like the Liverpool fans, they like to like overhype the bare minimum, and they love to give themselves like to way too much respect for stuff that isn't very big. But there's this whole narrative that they're so broke, FSG doesn't really spend, etc., etc., etc. But if you've looked at their finances, especially recently, you don't really see that, and you get even Arsenal as well. We have that same kind of narrative that we don't spend that much until this last summer when they literally spent the most. But they've always had this thing of we don't spend that much, we're paying off stadium debts, etc., etc. And it's like I don't really understand where this narrative comes from. And then with the oil people, the oil fans, like those people, they probably love I think they enjoy the fact that they have achieved what they have, but I think they sometimes don't fully. I feel like because of the way those kind of clubs were previously, especially like Manchester City, that were dwindling between Championship and Premier League until the early 2000s, they probably they'll take anything that they can get, and I think the way they have been able to come up as quickly as they have, they fail to acknowledge that yes, behind the scenes there have been some things that are not even not traditional, just not fair on the rest of the league, and the failure to acknowledge that from them and Chelsea as well, where there's been obviously some things that have been done that aren't fully like exactly what's the word, ethical. So I feel like they won't not acknowledge that, and sometimes that might taint what they've achieved as well. So I think it's like a good way to really like assess what the fan bases really truly think of their clubs and how much they respect their clubs and respect other clubs as well.
And I think that's the thing for me is you know, for today I want to look at some parameters here, because it's always very easy to pick and choose, and I think, you know, it's worth having that benchmark and perhaps kind of seeing it as we go in. You know, so, you know, the key figure I'm looking at is last sort of 10 seasons in terms of, you know, what I'm going to call the established, you know, your Manchester Uniteds and Liverpools and Arsenals. And the reason why I'm picking those teams is, at the end of the day, they are the recognized biggest clubs in England. They have, you know, they are the top three in terms of most trophies won.
Yeah.
You know, so they are the most recognized. They have that statesman brand across them. So, you know, I will be picking those teams, and for the oil-based team, I'm going to call them the New World Order. In the fact that
or the new
you have
oil order.
The new oil order. Well, oil's, you know, it's running out, isn't it? So, but the fact is that you have your Chelseas and your Man Cities, and now you've got your Newcastles, and you know, I always hear the tale of woe from the fans from the established lot in terms of like, oh, they're cheating, they're doing this, they're doing that, and I'm just thinking, no, you just acting a bit bitter because all of a sudden it's not going to be so straightforward when it comes to winning trophies, because it's not even the case of just winning leagues now. You know, cups are going to be difficult. Champions League, which a lot of the you know, the fan base are so reliant on, it seems, when it comes to supporting their club. You know, if they don't get fourth place, they're having a nervous breakdown. So we have to look at that. But I think, as I said, to be fairly smart on this one, let's look at the last sort of 10 years, and then we can work our way, and hopefully we can get some callers in. You know, as I said, from probably like half 8 onwards, we'll be probably looking to try and get some people on. But really want to sort of explore this with you, Sam. Like, for me, there is quite a clear argument that these new kids on the block, the New World Order, NWO, feel like it's wrestling we're talking about now, but you know, are taking over. They are taking over, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. You can talk about history, you can talk about nostalgia as much as you want. You know, at the end of the day, you have to operate in the here and now. So then if you look at the last 10 years in the Premier League, you know, the oil teams, if you want to call it, they've won 7 of the last 10 Premier League seasons. We're not even counting this season, because that's still very highly contested. But the 10 before that, seven of them, 6 Man City, 1 Chelsea, and then you think about the established, you know, the statesmen, and you know, that's only 2, Man United and Liverpool. That's a huge change, and you could probably say, well, okay, we'll look further 10 years back. Well, okay, we could keep going until it suits everybody, but 10 years is a good sample. It's a good sample. You could look at the EFL Cup. The EFL Cup is exactly the same. Is exactly the same in terms of, well, what's happened in the last 10 years? Well, actually,
it's the Man City Cup now.
Yeah. Sorry. When it comes to Premier League, Man City won 5, Chelsea won 2. In the EFL Cup, Man City have won 6 and Chelsea have won 1. So again, you know, less than the last 10 seasons, overwhelmingly with the newer teams. And you know, you look at the FA Cup, that's the only trophy, ironically enough, because that is the oldest competition in the world, where the traditional teams have done better. Someone breaking into your house?
No, I thought I just randomly dropped.
It's okay. The show goes on. Composure. But no, with FA Cup, it's a mad one, because obviously this is where Arsenal probably come in a bit more relevant, because they have won a big portion of the last 10 years. They've won 4 trophies. United and Liverpool yesterday, you know, have won, you know, an FA Cup each, with Man City and Chelsea only winning 2, which is kind of surprising, actually, because maybe it was kind of the 10 years previous to that where Chelsea were perhaps winning more FA Cups. So So for me, you're looking at what 14, 16 out of the 10 trophies available in last 10 years have gone to the newer, more developed teams in Chelsea,
Mm,
Man City. Obviously, Newcastle won't be featuring on that, but they could be in years to come. They could be the next Man City. Look where they are now in terms of Man City, compared to previous times. But I want to get your thoughts on that. Is there a change here? Is there a change, and is that where the fear comes in? So these arguments always go back down to nostalgia. You're not a proper club because we've got the fan base, we've got the
mm,
history, we've got this, that, and the other. Well, okay, that's fine, but where do you think history will eventually
mm.
become? Like, there's going to be Man City and Chelsea and what they're doing is going to become history at some point,
Yeah.
and it's going to be recognised as a crucial time for them.
So, like, I would like to assess this club by club because I feel like that's probably the best way for me in my head to sort it out. So you have a club like Arsenal, who, to put it straight, like they haven't really done anything that major since 2004. Most people, like most football fans now, or especially younger football fans, have never seen Arsenal lift the Premier League. Some of like that's just, and the only things they would have seen of them is like them in Champions League, and which has at times been shocking. Them being, I think it was 2010 or 11 that United absolutely demolished them. And then you have the Bayern Munich game as well. It's just like moment of the moment of just them having bad, like they've actually turned into. There's a reason why they're called Banter FC, because they've literally turned themselves into a parody of themselves. So, and I think like with them, and even if you look by the trophies of last 10 years, you're only looking at the FA Cups. You're not looking at anything else, which is quite damning on them. And I feel like they are probably like right now out of the big clubs, they are one of the lower ones in terms of like what kind of hype, what they've done recently, and it's just not for them. It's just like not working out, and I feel like the fan base is scared of clubs like Newcastle coming up, and they're even trying to like and because they feel like Newcastle is going to be another thing to stop them from getting back where they need to be. Because Newcastle, like let's be frank, Newcastle are going to come in and they're going to spend a lot of money and get in a lot of players. We saw that January transfer window. I've never seen a team fighting a relegation battle that have that kind of a January transfer window. I can never record that, but they've done what they needed to do. They look pretty much safe now, so it's all worked out for them. But I feel like them they're going to continue on this path, and I think like Arsenal and the Arsenal fan base are scared that because they're having this long project and it's building, they think like this other club that's got a lot of money is going to accelerate what they're trying to do and just brush past them.
But I don't just on that, and guys, hit a like if you agree with Sam's thoughts about Arsenal and the fact that they haven't hit anything major and they are just sort of scared. For me, I feel like this Arsenal thing. No, I feel like this Arsenal thing is a bit of a fallacy. I'm going to be honest. Arsenal have been big spenders throughout the Premier League history. I challenge anybody to look at the years between 92 to when it was formed to 99. Look at the periods. Look at the periods of spending when it comes to Arsenal. They've always been up there when it comes to spending, always. And actually, if you look at the last decade in terms of net spend, they're the fifth biggest. They spent more than Real Madrid.
Wait, in Europe?
This is in Europe. This is the absolute no cap or anything like that. In the last 10 years, in net spend, this is in euros, 583 million euros net spend. They are the fifth. And they spent more than Real Madrid. They've spent more than Bayern Munich. They've spent more than all the Italian clubs and this, that, and the other. But this is the bit that makes me laugh. This is the fan base that like to cry broke every single time. They always go. What's the excuse? You touched upon it earlier. The excuse is stadium debt. We we haven't got this, we haven't got that, but yet you're still the fifth biggest spenders. You've actually spent, just put this into context now, because we're doing heritage versus oil. Compare it to Chelsea. Chelsea have spent 100 million euros less, or there or thereabouts, than Arsenal. So who's really buying the league here, guys? That's the bit that I'm curious about, because that's always the narrative I hear when it comes to these clubs. Who's buying a league? Well, Arsenal are top 5. So Arsenal fans, I want you to get on here and actually tell me if I'm wrong here, because as I said, since the dawn of time when it came to the Premier League, you've always been up there for spending. And actually, I'm gonna go one better. I know you're going through all these clubs here, but whilst I remember, Newcastle have always been big spenders in the Premier League. Always.
Back in the day.
They've always been up there.
Oh, no, even recently, how much did they spend on Joe Linton?
Well, this is the hilarious part. So it's only probably recently in the last few years with Mike Ashley that's probably stopped, and they have had to have been on a budget of 30 to 40 million pounds. They generally can't go above that. So yes, they then have to be quite tight. But before that, they're making big purchases left, right, and centre. They didn't care. They were a baller club in that respect. They were happy to spend money on a player. So them doing this now is nothing new. But I guarantee you the narrative that'll be from fans online and the media, they will put a play on it. They will put a play on it. But I said, guys, I will. I'm actually, on Twitter. I'll show you the links of where I've seen this. But they are big spenders. They have been traditionally. It's only the last few years with Mike Ashley that they haven't. This season, they're already the biggest spenders. They were the biggest from January, mainly to get themselves out of a hole because they were pretty much relegated at that point. So that's probably more out of desperation, if anything.
Yeah, it's worked. So
no, it's massively worked. It's paid off. But yeah, these fallacies, listen, we need to hit the hard truths here. But yeah, Arsenal, no, you're done bad.
It's kind of, I think that kind of actually makes it worse on Arsenal, that you've spent so much, and like you apparently had like the greatest manager the Premier League has ever seen, Arsene Wenger. Apparently he revolutionized the whole league and like made it his own. And you haven't won a title for 18 years, and you're seeing other clubs come in and just walk past you. We saw a club like, and I'll go on to them from this, Man City, who came in and then just started buying off your players and then winning the league with them. Like, how do you go around and just let that happen? One, as a fan base, you guys just watched it happen. We're like, yeah, Arsene Wenger will just find a new kid from, I don't know, Guatemala or Spain or somewhere, and then that'll be the next big thing. But like, you guys were just hoping for like a dream. Like, I don't understand where that comes from. But with Man City, they came in 2008. And since then, it's just been strength to strength. They first started just buying players for the sake of it and just trying to get that first league title to establish themselves. But since they established themselves with the first league title, they've actually been actually trying to build as a football club and have somewhat now become a bit more self-sustaining. Because if you look at recently, they've actually been able to let go of players for quite decent sums and sell them off. One that particularly comes to mind is Leroy Sané. So even if you look at like net spend, yeah, it's still high, but I think people are slightly over exaggerating. Like, especially recently, they're not going out and just doing ridiculous signings without actually selling a lot, because they actually sell a lot of youth players as well. And I think like they're actually managing to balance the books a lot better than they previously were. I think people are choosing to ignore that. However, the way they came up is very sketchy, extremely. The sponsorship, they basically, essentially what they've done is, imagine I own a club and then I get Jinky now to act as like a separate company. Even worse, let's say like we're siblings and I get my sibling to be like a separate company, even though we're all part of the same company. And then they just fund me money as a sponsor, and then it enables me to literally spend how many hundreds of millions on loads of players and build up my squad. Like, I think that is a bit ridiculous. And then someone that's also kind of done that, but Abramovich, he's also kind of done that, but because he's injected a lot of money into that club, but he's also managed to make them one of the best run clubs in Europe.
Yeah,
from top to bottom. I think only recently with the transfers that have been very poor, and like their last like probably 3 to 4 transfer windows have been atrocious. In the long run, in the short run, they've won them like trophies, but long run's been awful. And but we've seen like we've seen like how in one season they went from kind of being in and around like top 4-ish, kind of like what you would expect from like a Spurs, to now winning the league with such an incredible record as well. That's like one of the most unforeseen things. And the way they've come up is, again, also has a lot of sketchy stuff behind it. And obviously now there's like, I think we should leave a lot of the political stuff out of it, because that is because it's about football, but we have to acknowledge there was like a lot of deals being done there as well, and I think it was just very, very unfair. But you know what, they've done what they've done, and they've actually managed to also do things organically as well, to an extent, and in terms of investing in their academy and being able to bring up a lot of youth players that have been able to somewhat carry their team now. If anyone's talking about Chelsea now, you're talking about Reece James or Mason Mount, or even Trevor Chalobah, who's come through and looks amazing. So they've done their thing. Newcastle is new. We can't really say too much on them. United is similar to Arsenal, but it's because I think the biggest difference is we have been run so poorly, in the sense of, because Arsenal still had Arsene Wenger for many years, who one could basically make water, like wine out of water. The guy was literally getting some of the deadest ballers you've ever seen and making them look good. United have gone through, after Fergie left, has just gone through absolute like atrocities, both on and off the pitch.
But I want to challenge this, because I always hear this with United fans, and I've probably even had that conversation myself in terms of brags. But do you think there's too much hype in terms of the fact that, you had the class 92, perhaps not so much was spent back then during that period, but United following that success, following the treble, were big spenders. They were big spenders. They were one of the biggest in the Premier League, arguably from that point the biggest in Europe. So the argument's always about buying the league. I always hear fans talk about Chelsea buying the league, Man City buying the league. Well, what's the difference? Tell me the actual difference here. Because at the end of the day, if you are they're successful, you're successful. But if the money's there, then why can't you spend it?
Yeah,
but Man United always claiming that it's down to heritage is why they've won it is kind of, I feel like, hang on, it's a bit of a fallacy. You spent big bucks to get Rooney. You spent big bucks to get Ferdinand. You spent quite a lot of money for Michael Carrick for the value at the time. That's what I'm saying. That they have spent money.
Yeah.
Let's not get away from that. I feel like that's always ignored, that point.
I feel like what I view as the main difference is the way that money was gotten. So you see how Man City have done it by doing like the really like sketchy deals that are technically legal, but just loopholes. Whereas United, so like having the class of 92 is something that we'll probably never see again. And that allowed them to gain a lot of traction, gain a lot of popularity, and gain a lot of money. And then that allowed them to then be big spenders. I think they were able to become big spenders because they came up through like heritage. I think that's why that's why I think a lot of United fans also believe that we still kind of gained our money in the right way. And I think is we're still able to spend big. Like we have the Glazers literally taking profits out of the club, and we're still able to spend big. Imagine what United could be spending if profits weren't taken out. It would be astronomical. I think people would generally complain about the amount of money we're spending, because I think we'd be talking about 200 million plus.
But Sam, what's worse? A team that, and I'm not talking necessarily about Man United, so it's probably more aimed at more Arsenal and Liverpool.
Yeah.
Teams that have spent money that essentially they don't have, putting them in situations like how Arsenal have been, where they've had to tighten their belt, or actually just being able to spend the money because you generally have it. Like, I just don't. What's worse for me? Because for me, Arsenal and potentially even Liverpool were at points where they could have easily been the next Portsmouth. And people might laugh at that now and go, "What are you talking about?" Well, Liverpool fans in particular, or certainly ones who are a little bit older, they will tell you about Hicks and Gillette. The honest ones, anyway, will tell you about how bad it was under Hicks and Gillette. You know, FSG coming in saved Liverpool. It really did. They were in such dire straits at that point. And I think people forget this. There's such wholesale changes with Arsenal. And I feel like all this spending eventually just kind of caught up with them. They still spent a lot of money. Obviously, I don't know. But you know, when it comes to the Man City part, and as I said, I'm just being devil's advocate at this point, and I know you're going to talk about Man City more, is the thing that actually decided Man City had overspent from an FFP point of view was the Wilfried Boney signing. That is the signing that put them over. So, yeah, you do have the shady on paper deals with, like, well, how is it that they did the deal with the Etihad Airways, you know, whose families helping each other out. But at the end of the day, legally, the FA, the Premier League, UEFA, they put these rules in place. So legally, they could be investigated, but what was found? Nothing. The only thing that was found was Wilfried Boney being the transfer that went over, which they tried to, I don't even know if they even tried to disguise that part. But the fact of the matter is they got caught, they got fined, and it was dealt with. But that's the reality of it, isn't it? I'm not going to get all bitter and butthurt about it when these are the same bloody idiots who put these rules in place and then can't do their jobs properly when it comes to investigating.
Yeah. Also, I think, first of all, it's Wilfried Boney. I don't think anyone is going to be like, it's not like they bought like Aguero.
Yeah, that wasn't the Aguero
did it. Boney. But also, like, people need to acknowledge that FFP was also a method to try and keep the smaller clubs from coming up. And like, because to say, like, imagine like you're Man United and you've already like won the league, and then you're obviously going to get the most dividends from winning the league. You're the most popular, so you're gonna obviously have the money from like your fan base, from like buying t-shirts, etc., sponsorship deals. So then you're going to be able to spend the most and get more players in. But then imagine you're a club like a Man City back then, pre oil money. They're probably saying they're like, oh, we haven't done that well. We're not going to get that much more money from the league. We're not going to get very good sponsorship deals. We're not going to get very like TV. I think even at one point, I'm pretty sure the Premier League was on free TV at one point. So what dividends are you really going to get from TV deals? So what money would there have been to spend? And then you can't attract players then. Like, and then what happens? You go through another season of just wishing and hoping it doesn't go well again. And you had a lot of teams that were ending up on like a cycle of either having to stay mediocre for a very, very long time and just try to stay in the league around mid-table, or you've had clubs that have tried to spend a bit more and have suffered for it.
Yeah.
And then you'll get relegated and then you're now in debt because you've spent more than you really are supposed to. You haven't balanced the books. You find it hard, and then when you get relegated, you can't sell certain players for what they would have been previously, and like you're just struggling in like a downward spiral. And we've seen certain clubs go from Premier League and have just since gone down to like League One, and it's just shocking for them. And like how you introducing FFP was a way to ensure that happened. However, we've now seen clubs that found loopholes around that, which, you know what, is for the best. It's made the league to a degree more and entertaining overall. We've seen like a lot more like calamities, a lot of crazy stuff have happened, and I feel like we need to also we need to understand that the old, like the three clubs that we're talking about have literally tried to keep other clubs from achieving anything, and have tried to tell them down, agreeing to FFP, trying to push forward and trying to bully the league as well, trying to buy everyone's best players, especially United.
Well, guys, if you agree with Sam's comments there in terms of the old order, because this actually takes us probably into more UEFA category in terms of like you've got the established who want to keep it as it is. They don't want anybody new coming to the table. PSG, Man City. Look, we saw what happened to Malaga. Malaga dared try to do something, and they got stitched. They got absolutely stitched because of what? Jealousy. Now we've got Ministry Z. He likes to make a big entrance here. Welcome, my man. I'm sure you got plenty to say. I know for a fact that this week you have been at Liverpool fans. You have been at Liverpool fans about finances and whatnot.
Drugs.
And this whole Man City argument.
Jerry Springer in a snapback. Give me a second, lad.
He's gone. But yeah, so for those who aren't on a Twitter sphere, Z has been he's not buying into this Liverpool hype or anything like that. And one thing actually was quite interesting when it came to this narrative that Liverpool, they've been pure in how they've done it. They've done it with no money. They've done it with beautiful recruitment. Their recruitment has been beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But to say that they've been doing it with no money at all and barely network, that I feel like it's an old narrative that's quickly disappearing. Because Z, what was it? You and I, we sort of looked into
we looked into the net spend.
Yeah, Man City's net spend the last 4 seasons. I actually physically looked at the inbound transfers and outgoings and everything like that. And Man City's net spend the last 4 seasons compared to Liverpool's last 4 seasons, we worked out it was 20 million difference. £20 million difference.
Do you know what's crazy about it, right? This is nothing new. It's nothing new. If you remember, before Arsenal fans were doing this, they made this myth that Arsene Wenger never spent no money. Because obviously we'd go out there and we'd sign the mega players, we'd go out there and spend X, Y amount. And they'd actually make it out as if Arsene Wenger never spent no money. Because they'll say, Arsene Wenger sold players for more than what he bought them, purchased them for. So he, at the end of the day, he was spending money that he's making. But at the end of the day, it's still money spent. Because what people don't understand is the way finances work in football, they can go to different things. So just because you're thinking, all right, cool, I've my club's taken 80 mil for a player which I bought which we purchased for 30 mil, and they've now gone and bought this player for 40 mil. You're thinking, oh, we made 10 million profit. No, that's not how it works. I'll give Leicester as an example. Manchester United bought Harry Maguire for 80 million. Leicester then went on to use those finances to go develop their academy or their training ground.
Yeah, so spent some money on training facilities.
Training grounds.
So do you get what I mean? When people do not understand how football finances work, and it can work for and against you. I remember Chelsea coming through, right? And when Chelsea came through, people go remember those. It also works with refereeing decisions, because I see a lot of Arsenal fans piping up today saying there's a conspiracy against them. Lardy, accept your L's. So I'll give you an example. Chelsea, if people remember that Liverpool game, the year Liverpool actually won the Champions League, there's a few controversial decisions within that game. We've seen the same. Chelsea then had controversial decisions against them in Barcelona game.
Yeah.
We've seen PSG have controversial decision against Manchester United with the penalty which Rashford scored. Right? Man City, controversial decision against Tottenham. So bear in mind, when you're looking at these things such as the top four, the big six and everything, and extra places in the Champions League, all of these things have been implemented to protect the big clubs. Recently, you just see UEFA planning to add the fifth club. What do you think these fifth clubs are added for? But people don't want to pay attention to those things because people are too busy looking at the things for face value. They're not seeing what's behind them. They're not seeing what's behind things. So they're just looking at the makeup. They're not seeing that what's underneath it. They're not seeing what's beneath the skin. They're not seeing none of that. They want to choose to ignore all of that. And it goes beyond me because everything we're seeing right now with Liverpool and Man City, we've already seen with Manchester United and Arsenal. Because there's no win or win. Like, there's no win or lose. Like, it's crazy because one minute you've got Manchester United who spent over $1 billion getting scrutinized for not winning anything. And on the other hand, you've got someone that spent $1 billion but spent it well, dominating the English league, what is renowned as the best league in the world, and they're getting scrutinized for it. Because the gap, the bridge in it is X, Y amount of millions. Like, and it's just used to batter people or to give people this hero story, which I find so ridiculous. You get what I mean?
No, what do you think? What do you think on when it comes to, because you touched upon Man City? What do you think, Z, about Man United? You know, this narrative. And I said I'm trying to be devil's advocate here. This whole narrative of, you know, United done it properly, class of '92. They made their money because they were successful. Southeast Asia. Does that narrative now need to end? Because this is going back 30 years now. You know, we were in our nappies essentially when that all started. Sam, bless him, didn't even exist. You know, he was just an idea, you know, or bad mistake in this. I don't know, I'm messing up. But no, but this is the reality of it. This is going back some time. You know, United have benefited from that success.
Yeah.
But they have spent a heck of a lot since the 2000s. Last 10 years, over $1 billion. But even before that, they were still spending big. So, you know, this whole argument that United fans always throw at City or Chelsea, like, oh, you've bought the league. Well, what is that then? If you're the highest spenders each time, are you not buying the league? Are you not ensuring that continuity of success?
Exactly that. Blackburn bought the league. Newcastle tried. Never worked with Newcastle. Chelsea tried. And people forget before Roman's Chelsea, they actually tried. I think people actually need to go do their research. There's been so many attempts to do so. When I look at Manchester United, it's similar to any other big team, right? They've got the core. You develop your core, right? Once you develop your core, you then add on to it, right? And it's hard to find. You can get the profile, but depending on what the team's built upon, like, for example, what Manchester United were built upon, it's hard to find. You can find the profile in terms of the style of player you want, but to suit that team, it's a whole different thing. You look at Pep Guardiola. You cannot tell me that he hasn't bought some and got rid of some good players. But in terms of their mindset and how to adapt, they haven't been able to do so, hence why they left. You know, Varane was not a bad player. Do you get what I mean? But it just never worked out for him. Like, he was one of the best midfielders in the world at the time. It just never worked out for him. And maybe he never had that grit that applied to the Manchester United culture. And which is never a bad thing. Nowadays, people love to dismiss people because it never worked out for them at a club. It's multiple. I tweeted out not long ago, Giroud heavily dismissed at Arsenal. His stocks were devalued.
Yep.
And then after you see Giroud now, ever since he's left Arsenal, he's gone on to win. He's gone on to win a World Cup, an FA Cup, a Champions League, Europa League, and he's one game away from winning a Serie A title. So, you know, not to drift off topic, but as I said, because they don't work out, you're going to have to replace them. And when you're competing at the highest level, you want the best in class. And the best in class not always just has to be the talent, it's also the mindset. that costs money. And it costs money to maintain things. It costs money to maintain a household. It costs money to maintain a business. It costs money to maintain your life. So,
well, here, so just on the chats here, I was just seeing Sue's 82. Man United had good youth system. Fergie won leagues with average players too. This is my argument though. You're going back to Fergie again. Back to Fergie. Like, come on, man. This is what we're talking about. What have Man United done since then? Have they not tried to buy their way back into the promised land?
Even that, it's been hard.
Not many average players.
Even that, we were fortunate to have some characters. I think a lot of people forget the adversities that were going on through there. We had players that were soldiers that managed to stay there and actually wanted to be there for the club. Like you had your Hughes, your Bruces, and everything. And then after we added a few missing pieces of the puzzle. Cantona at that time, 1.5 million. Do you know what that would be in today's age? You know what I used to be able to get for a pound? A pound when I was younger was like a $5.
Hey.
A pound was like a $5. So people need to take inflation into it. Like,
don't forget also the world record bid for Alan Shearer. It ended up being Newcastle doing it, but that's what I'm saying. That if anything, the early 90s, I'd probably say United didn't spend us, but there was still big spending.
No, there was a lot of big spending. Like
80s were worse in terms of
80s
in comparison.
They were worse, but 2000s, I mean 90s, they were actually bad. But the thing is, because we had the core, it wasn't as
that brought it down. It brought it down.
Yeah. But then afterwards, you look at some of the hit and misses that we started taking in the thousands, because we're talking about now we're having to rebuild. That core starting to get older. You get what I mean? So you have to then rebuild on that. Like, you go look at Real Madrid. Wow. No one talks about it. We're not allowed to talk about Real Madrid because they've got the most Champions Leagues. But okay, do you want to do the math on the Galacticos team? I don't think people are ready for that conversation. So, but no one wants to talk about it because they're playing over there. Same with Barcelona, because they're playing over there. No one wants to talk about it. Oh, they've got 13 Champions Leagues spiraled down. Let's forget you. No, these things happen, but we want to dismiss it because it don't suit your agenda.
That's a really interesting point, because I always see narratives quickly change when it comes to I said I've been separating these two groups as established a new world order, NWO. And with your Man Uniteds and Liverpools and Arsenals. It's like their measure of success is always league based. It seems I know Liverpool you probably say actually always talk about Champions League, but then when it comes to your Chelseas and your Man Cities, because we've got recent money, it's always a case of they have to get Champions League, and that's that standard always seems to just dwarf into other things. It keeps getting pushing. The goalposts keep pushing and pushing and pushing because of this weird sort of jealousy. I don't know what it is. It's just,
but do you know what? I'll ask a question now, right? Why don't people? What was Arsenal fans complaining about before? Our owners don't spend money. Our owners don't spend money, but you're angry at the person that's spending money. People forget before Mourinho even came in, Chelsea did have an influx of players that came in, right? They had a few players that came in. Ranieri got, because that was Roma, so she got a few players in, and they finished second. He wanted it now, and that's the thing. This is what it also comes down to owners. When they want it now, I demand it. They're going to invest, and he invested heavily with Mourinho, and he got his return year on year. He goes, I want my Champions League. I want that UCL. I want the Dumbo Air Trophy. He invested, and he got it. After that, has he invested compared to what he was investing in before? No. Chelsea fans started getting upset. You get what I mean? So, but obviously, that's a different conversation. But it's all about, as soon as you get your core right, and you've got your players you can rely upon, you're not going to invest that much. Like, people talk about, like City, how much have they invested over the past 2 seasons? What is it? I'm pretty sure Arsenal probably spent more than City in the last 2 seasons.
I would probably say so.
I think so, yeah.
So what does that tell you?
Arsenal and Man United,
They've got their core. They've got their core sorted. Now it's just about adding little pieces. Okay, I've got my Haaland. All right, cool. Fernandinho's gone. Let me go add another midfielder. You're building your core now. So as years go on, all I'm gonna have to do is replace one worldie with another worldie. I'm not gonna go out there and buy 4 or 5 players. And these are things people are not paying attention to. They're not paying attention to.
So Z, I'm gonna ask you two questions here.
Go ahead, sir.
Right. So the main sort of question: Are the oil slickers taken over? Are they taken over? They're winning more Premier Leagues. They seem to be winning more cups. Are they taken over?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Listen, they are. But money always talks. Money's always been taken over. And it's expected. But for me, as a fan, because I interact with a lot of fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really like using the term that they're taking over. I just say, this is football. This is just football. You supported your club before owners came in, right? Your love for that club was your love for that club before those owners came in. We all love McDonald's, no matter how many times they change the ingredients or they change the size of the burger or the size of the chips, the way they salt it. That's it. So for me, I just look at it as these are clubs building their legacy. Yeah, you can argue, say, yeah, they are taking over, but 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, if they fall off, what's it going to be? Do you get what I mean? But for me, more or less, I look at it as, I saw Fergie survive many times against the money pumpers. He survived Blackburn, even though Blackburn managed to worm a league title. He survived Newcastle. He survived Chelsea. He survived Arsenal. So there's never an excuse. If for me, it's on the owners. And that's always how I look to. Because it's the owner's job to protect it. Do you get what I mean? No matter if you see the emergence of someone else coming through and you're the owner, the players on the pitch can only do so much. The manager can only do so much if his hands are tied behind his back. So the owners need to be looking at it. So I put it more on the owners. So yes, I do agree that the oil babies, the olive oil babies are the ones. But at the same time, I've got to say they're building history, and it then goes back to the owners.
Yeah,
I feel like there's like 2 clubs. It's not Premier League based, but you touched on it slightly before with Madrid and Barcelona, especially Madrid, because Madrid have literally done the craziest stuff and no one talks about it. They've literally gone in debt multiple times, had the state bail them out. There is how do you overspend and then the country bails you out? I think no one talks about the fact that Barcelona recently were spending so much money, ridiculous amounts of money, to literally be set so far back, and because of how big they are, those 2 clubs, they've been having to be kept like saved by like, oh, let's extend the payment plan, let's give them a little bit of loan, let's do this, let's do that, etc., etc. I feel like no one really wants to talk about that because they're hailed as these massive clubs.
This happens everywhere. Ask Barclays, why they were Man City never got crucified.
Is that some homework there about ownership by any chance, Z?
Just not me. Ask Barclays why Man City never got crucified. Man City viewers, if you're watching this or if you watch this later, Man City fans will know what I'm talking about.
Guys, hit that like if you want to see Barclays it reveal why they haven't gone after Man City there. Now, just quickly, just whilst we have that break, all 3 of us, I'm sure you probably all sick to the death of us now trying to get a tune out of these rival fans, but we're all on the Twitter Spaces. Z in particular, he's been hosting a heck of a lot of spaces under, well, not just the Uncomfortable Truth, but many other different ones. And guys, check it out, because there's some really, really good football debates and the stuff that actually we hear and actually feel we should bring to the forefront on this show here as well. So please do check it out. You've got myself, Jinky Knows, Doctor Who Sam 7, and Ministry Z. You know, he's always thereabouts. I think he's definitely he's not welcome in North London or Liverpool at this point.
Nah, he's not. 100% not.
You know, do you know the funny thing is as well? What I like about about the space is also interacting with different fans.
Some fan bases. Let's talk about that.
You know, because Twitter's a wide world, right? I spoke to a Newcastle fan relevant to the topic of discussion right now, and I spoke to him. I said, "How do you feel about the ownership?" And he said, "We got so tired of Mike Ashley was willing to take anything. He could have been anyone." And I said, you know what? Because I remember when Manchester United, there was talks about, I think there was when the ownership with the Saudis were cut, and there was a lot of mixed reviews by the general fan base. And you go back and you think to yourself, how, you know, because they were trying to get him out so much, they just looked past it and said, you know what, always want to accept anything. And now they talked about certain things that happen in their stadium, like the white and black flags, and how they're bringing out certain traditions back that weren't happening, and the buzz that is brought around the ground, the buzz that is brought, like it's no longer, St. James's Park no longer feels dead. It feels amazing. And
well, it's definitely not the Sports Direct Arena, is it? So
exactly, that's what I'm saying. So I was saying to myself, these are the things in football as well that I think at times, yes, we can look at the owners and be like, oh, you know what, their background, do their CRB checks and everything, and we can criticize them for it. But at the same time, if the person is bringing such values, such joy, I think that's also something that people need to get credit for. I don't feel people get credit for that because, you know, like there's anyone that goes to Old Trafford now, it's stale. And people say, oh, Ollie brought a bit of a buzz back. It wasn't as bad. Listen, I'll be honest with you, from night you visiting that ground up until present, it's just not. It's even under Ollie, wasn't it?
To you know, because I appreciate that some people might look at that and go sports washing and all that. But from a pure fan perspective, when you're going to a match, when, you know, we talked about it last week about money in the game and the fans and whatnot, when you're spending that much money to go see a game, you want to be entertained, don't you? You want to feel that it's something special at the club. You know, you touched upon Manchester United, Old Trafford, theatre of dreams. You want to go there buzzing when you leave, going, I can't believe I've just seen that. I can't believe I've seen that moment. Yeah. And as you said, there is a staleness to it. It does feel a bit tired, which is, I can't believe I'm saying that about my own club, because as growing up, that was the dream, that was the buzz. As soon as you see that stadium, I'm like, you know, I'm getting butterflies in my tummy.
No disrespect, right? But we went from crying about comebacks and great victories and title races, keep stretching gaps, to people crying about Cavani. No disrespect to that child. I'm pretty sure probably one of your favorite players. No disrespect to that family, pretty sure it's one of your favorite players. But I'm trying to give the context that when you was going there and the roar in the stadium alone, you go do your research and speak. Go just look at players talking about when they used to walk through that tunnel, the atmosphere. You get what I mean? Now you got one corner singing, one corner. Like it's like a bloody bingo. If you ever go bingo with your nan or something, can after you see it, that's what it is more time. How can the away end make more noise than the home end? What does that tell you? Yeah. You know, before I used to be able to socialize at just half time and certain times and everything, or if you got to the game early and a few people were finding their seats, that's when you're socializing. Now you can talk in between the game. I know he's not gonna score. Back in my day, it don't make no sense. So,
Sam,
like I said, it's about bringing that value. And I know people talk about City not spending not being able to fill out their stadium, but I've seen that certain times when they've like promoted certain things in order to get fans going and certain things. The best thing that Man United done of recent was actually that Youth Cup and lowering the ticket prices and making sure
pound ticket.
Yeah. But lads, I appreciate you not having me on. I've got to go. Cheers, and artists. Listen, it's always a pleasure being on this, man. I'm loving it. Honestly, I'm loving the show. I'm really loving it, and yeah, I'm loving it, man. And obviously, people, please like and subscribe and follow these guys on their socials, man. It's like, listen. Also, we took a break and everything, but they're putting in awesome work every week, different content, and it's educational. So yeah, peace out, lads. Appreciate for having me on, and yeah, I'll definitely be back. Love.
Cheers, Z. Thanks for that. And yes, Sam. One thing I wanted to sort of get from your side, because I know we've talked about a lot of the, talked about Man City, we've talked about Chelsea, but actually we haven't really talked about Newcastle. And I think before we sort of wrap up the show, I do want to talk about that, because at the end of the day, this is going to be the new narrative. It's going to be the new narrative. In 10 years' time, are we actually going to be saying or having that repeat conversations effectively about, Newcastle, they bought the league? Are you going to find the irony where Chelsea, they kind of do it in some ways to Man City fans? Now you're going to get Man City fans poking at Newcastle going, wow, you haven't won the league, you haven't won the FA Cup, right, and all that same old tribe. It's just rinse repeat.
Yeah. Thing is, like, with United, it's been a different situation, because we've had this guy Ferguson who's just like he was just too good at his job, that no amount of money could compensate for the guy literally was starting a midfield with Phil Jones and Raphael and winning a league. Like, I think anyone could compensate for that. And then that's what's caused, I think, because he's been able to fend off so many attacks from the money, that United fans have this cockiness about them. And oh yeah, we've done this, we've done that. And then when Fergie left, and like, we're not able to just like have this manager that's literally making us win titles with some of the worst players you will have seen. And like, we've seen them try to, and the fact that we're not winning anymore, we're trying to look for like excuses for what is really just the club's own failures. And I think that's what other clubs are going to start to do. We've seen Arsenal have been doing it since the early 2000s. They've been complaining about X, Y, Z. They will find any excuse, because if you say, they'll first say, we conkeys, don't spend. Then you show them net spend. Then you'll hear, the refs are against us. They are against us. And you constantly get excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse. And I feel like if clubs aren't able to keep up, you're gonna start hearing the fan bases come up with just excuse after excuse after excuse, and not actually looking within themselves and within their club and actually thinking maybe there are some issues. Because even Chelsea fans won't admit it, but there are some very fundamental structural issues. I know they love this woman. They call her the Iron Lady. They love her. Marina has made some atrocious transfers in the past few years, and you are literally going down the path United are now, and we're starting to hear the excuses of because we had a Russian owner, they don't want us to win anything, blah 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 blah, and they start going off on that tangent. It's just, or maybe your club has made lots of mistakes, and you can't accept the fact that maybe another club has gone and done the right things that your club was supposed to do, and you haven't. So I think that's really the main crux of it to me. If your club is able to adapt, they will be able to adapt. If they're not, you'll see the fan bases starting to make excuses, which is why with United, I don't make excuses for them, because I think most United fans have now started to realize that there is literally no excuse for the fact that our club has been run atrociously. It's been run so badly, and we can't excuse that, because how are we supposed to challenge when the whole fan base knows we need a midfielder, and then the owners and we are like, you know what, let's just sign Ronaldo instead.
Well, Sam, it's just sort of summarize. We'll look to wrap this one up. Do you think the oil clubs have taken over or are taken over?
I think, in a broader sense, yes. I think in terms of success, they've definitely taken over. Like you've said it, the past 10 years, they've been just dominating in terms of trophies wise. And I think like other teams right now are kind of just playing catch up with them. I know Liverpool would love to talk about the fact that, we beat the best team, like the best Premier League team, because they beat the Centurions or the treble, the domestic treble winning team. But if we really look at it, those clubs have been dominating for years. There's been no 5 years of dominance from Liverpool since the 80s. There's been no 5 years of dominance for United since the early 2000s or the mid 2000s. There's been no dominance from Arsenal probably since the 90s. Since probably like the mid to late 2000s, these clubs have come in and they've literally taken over. Now we are starting to see changes in those clubs, though. We are starting to see changes from Liverpool in terms of Klopp and the whole rebuild, trying to like getting a fantastic manager and getting a certain caliber of players and having this style and have been able to win and try and get back up there. We're seeing United going with the new Ten Hag regime now, trying to make wholesale changes to the entire club, which I have a lot of things about that, but that's for another day. And we're seeing Arsenal try and bring back their thing with Arteta, which is questionable itself, but at least there is an attempt being made. I think they are probably still in the process of it, but I think once there will be a new thing that will come along, maybe within 5-10 years, probably like Bitcoin clubs, the way Bitcoin is coming up, and we're gonna now start seeing this new type of club get bought out, and then because it's just, that's the way football works. It's just gonna be cycles of new things coming and taking over and trying to dominate.
And that's a really good point. And you know, the billionaires, you know, the millionaires of yesteryear, the billionaires of today, the ones that have been replaced, they will get replaced by trillionaires, you know, and they will start looking at their business and going, well, actually, this isn't sustainable long term, so maybe we should start keep looking at sports. And you can't build up like an arms race, isn't it? It's a really good point. And for me, to sort of summarize, look, have they taken over? Of course they have. The proof is in the pudding. Look at your Premier Leagues. Look at FA Cups. Look at the League Cups. Look at who's always present when it comes to the Champions League latter stages. Yeah, there are some teams who, you know, have their own competitions. You know, Arsenal do well in FA Cups. Liverpool do well in Champions Leagues. But year on year, but Liverpool have always been doing that, haven't they? And that's the thing. That's something that they feel entitled to. When it comes to sort of Man City and Chelsea, look, they are here and they're probably here to stay. But one thing I will say to football fans is that football comes in cycles. Just look at the history of that. I think people sometimes look at it and go, well, Man City are going to be here to stay and they're going to probably, you know, be winning trophies for 50 years. No, it doesn't work that way. And Sam, as you said, all it takes is for a sale to happen, for mistakes to be made, where you go away from what it was that made you good in the first place, and then you've just got a downward trajectory, along with a club who've hit that sweet spot, who are up and coming. They've just got the right players at the right time that identifies with them. And I think that is important. Look, there's only so much money can take you, only so much. If every club has a rich owner, you know, as a billionaire owner, a trillionaire owner, well, they can't all win something. do you know what I mean? So
they're all quite rich anyway.
Comparatively, yes. You know, but there's only so much you can physically do. Do you know what I mean? Where there is squad harmony that gets affected by it. So yeah, in terms of answering the question, yes, but don't be surprised if you start seeing other clubs coming to the forefront. It might be a case where actually we don't talk about the teams that we've mentioned here. We start talking about Wolves or a Leicester. You know, they might have an opportunity where all of a sudden they just grow and it hit, and they have their period of dominance. You just never know. All it takes is that one transaction.
We could see Derby get new owners that are big like Bitcoin spenders, and then they come up from League One, and then like in the next 5-10 years, they're now winning leagues. Like it's like this has just been football, and they could win one league and fall off. You don't know. I
do believe that there are sour grapes when it comes to the older teams, the more established teams. You know, Manchester United. You know, I think it's such hypocrisy looking across the road, talk about spending when we have spent. I don't care about the Glazers at this point. That's a whole separate conversation. But you cannot deny what has been spent. Now it's been spent poorly. So why should I be jealous of a club who've probably spent similar but have done it better?
Yeah.
You know, Arsenal fans, you've spent money. Go look it up. Go look at the last 5 years. Go look at the last 10 years. You have spent money. You've been in the top 5 in Europe. You've spent more than Real Madrid. You've spent more than Chelsea, who you're quite happy to say have come in and bought the league. Well, what is it that you've done? You've spent £100 million more in terms of net. It seems to me that actually you're just not doing the business properly. Same arguments what we said about Manchester United. Well, Chelsea have done more with less. They've got more to show. They've got Premier Leagues. They've got Champions League. They've got European trophies. Arsenal just have FA Cups. You know, Liverpool, this whole narrative about, we've done it right. Yeah, you may have 10 years ago. But then again, your club was going bust under Hicks and Gillette. Maybe when FSG came in, you had to balance the book, which makes sense. You had to sell players and you got some good money back and you've used that to then reinvest in your squad. That's fine. I'm not going to criticize that. But this recent times, this last 4 seasons, Liverpool have spent, in terms of net, about 25 mil less than Man City. Yet you're quite happy on all these platforms and everything like that. It's all about how Man City going there and buying a league and the money that they've spent is not sustainable. This, that, and the other. There is 20 to 25 million pounds difference between what you've spent and what Man City have spent recently. So yeah, City probably did front load it. Chelsea probably front load it. But isn't that business 101? You've got to speculate to accumulate. But yet, you know, people keep saying football is a business, but then they don't want it to be applied like a business.
You can also argue that City have actually done better in terms of selling players, because Liverpool haven't been able to sell players to get a good return on them at all. But Man City have. They've gotten returns on a lot of players that they've sold, but no one wants to talk about the fact that they're
Suarez and Coutinho, isn't it? Suarez and Coutinho. The difference is, you are right. In recent times, because these players aren't hyped about, and this is the thing, and this is the narrative. And look, you know, I'm not naive to ignore that certain teams get hype. You know, if a Man United player does well, they are hyped by the media. If a Liverpool player does well, they are hyped. Coutinho was hyped. Suarez, and actually, you know, for Suarez' sake, quite rightly so, you know, hyped, which then generates the big bucks. So they've reinvested in those players. That's fine. I'm not going to criticize that. But don't come to me today, this season, trying to make out that you spent fuck all money and that you have seriously spent.
So much.
You know, Newcastle, you were, you know, the Saudi owners have come in for this long-term project. Yet the first thing you did, because you're in relegation zone, is literally brought your way out of trouble. And I know that's not the first time clubs have ever done that. You could probably argue a lot of clubs do that. But the fact is, you're doing that. So it'd be really interesting to see what Newcastle then do. You know, do they go back to that old school Newcastle where they are just spending and spending and spending? They were one of the biggest spenders in the 90s. They're one of the biggest spenders in the early noughties. Go look it up. Go look it up. But as I said, I do think it is sour grapes. I think it's people wanting to ignore their club's calamities. And as you said earlier, Sam, it's fear. It's fear. So they keep moving the goalposts. Instead of actually recognizing the the actual success in terms of why are they getting it right? Why are they getting it right? You know, people laugh at Roman's model saying it's not sustainable, and he's not the owner anymore.
He got 2 Champions Leagues. He's not complaining.
But they've won. It might be an anomaly, but they still have nonetheless. It worked for them.
Yeah.
You know, did it create a long-term squad cohesion? Probably not, because their players throw the managers under the bus every 2 years. But that's the reality of it. So that's my thoughts there. You know, next week, guys, for next show, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'll follow this up on Twitter tomorrow. Is actually I'm going to do a poll to see what subjects you actually would like to discuss, because there are a number of things. There's a number of subjects that we've touched upon. I know there's Real Madrid being bought out. You know, are Real Madrid the first ever state-sponsored club? You know, this is one of the elder statesmen, the statesman of world football. You know, who like to complain about your PSGs and your Man Cities but weren't they the first one? You know, there's arguments to be had there. So, you know, that will probably be on the list. But I'll send the poll out, and based on the results, we'll do that show. But for me, as we've always said, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe this one. It'll be good to perhaps continue this debate into next week, you know, on Twitter Spaces, because I don't think, you know, that there's plenty more to discuss. I want to hear the retort from all the other fans, you know, in terms of like, look, these are my thoughts, rah, rah, rah. And actually, I'm going to shoot them down with facts and history and actual spending, because I think too many times people don't look at the history of it. They just want to look at the optics of what's been provided to them by certain outlets. But that's everything for myself. Sam, thank you so much for joining. Big up to Z, who was our guest today. And guys, we will see you next week. Take care.
Take care.